You know that feeling when someone says something that ruins your entire day? What if I told you that feeling only lasts 90 seconds unless you keep feeding it? Here's the truth. Anger is a choice. Neurologically, the stress chemicals that create anger naturally flush from your system in exactly 90 seconds. But we keep the anger alive by replaying the story, rehearsing our comeback. It's like having a smoke alarm that goes off when you burn toast, but instead of opening a window, you keep making more toast. Next time someone cuts you off in traffic, notice what happens. Your body floods with stress hormones. That's the 90 seconds. But then you start the story. What an idiot! And suddenly, you're still angry 20 minutes later. When you understand this 90-second rule, you realize you have a choice point. You can let the chemicals flush naturally, or you can feed the fire. Everyone knows someone who stays calm no matter what happens. They're not superhuman. They just know something you're about to learn. Chapter 1. The Button Pusher Myth. You're not a remote control. They really know how to push my buttons. We say this like we're helpless remote controls. But nobody can push buttons you don't give them. Here's the button pusher myth, that other people have magical powers over your emotions. But buttons only work when they're connected to something. Those buttons are actually unhealed wounds or values violations from your past. When someone pushes your buttons, they're showing you exactly where you still need healing. Your coworker makes that sarcastic comment that always sets you off. Instead of automatically reacting, pause and ask, what is this really about? Maybe it reminds you of your critical parent. Suddenly, the coworker isn't pushing your buttons, they're revealing them. When you stop being a remote control, you become the operator of your own emotional state. Nobody gets to decide how you feel except you. Consider your biggest trigger person. What they trigger in you has nothing to do with them. Chapter 2. The Secondary Emotion Revelation. What anger is really hiding. Here's something that will blow your mind. What you call anger isn't actually anger. Anger is the emotional equivalent of a security guard. It shows up to protect feelings like hurt, fear, or shame. When someone criticizes you and you get angry, you're not really angry. You're hurt that they don't see your value. Anger feels safer than vulnerability. So it volunteers to be the spokesperson. Your partner forgets your anniversary, and you explode in anger. But underneath that anger is hurt. Do I not matter to you? When you address the hurt instead of expressing the anger, a real shift happens. I felt forgotten gets a very different response than, you never remember anything. When you learn to identify the emotion underneath anger, you can address the real issue. Vulnerability heals. Anger just creates more distance. Reflect on your last big anger episode. What was the vulnerable emotion hiding underneath? Chapter 3. The Choice Point Discovery. Your superpower between trigger and response. Between every trigger and your response, there's a space. In that space lies your freedom. Most people don't even know this space exists. Viktor Frankl discovered this in a Nazi concentration camp. No matter what happens to you, you always have the freedom to choose your response. That trigger hits, your body floods with chemicals, but before you react, there's a microsecond of choice. When you learn to find that choice point, you become the author of your own experience. Someone sends you a passive-aggressive email. Your first impulse is to fire back immediately. But in that moment before you hit send, ask yourself, what response would I be proud of tomorrow? That question activates your choice point. This choice point is your emotional superpower. It's the difference between being a pinball bouncing off circumstances or being the player controlling the game. Think about someone who never seems to get rattled. They've mastered the space between trigger and response. You can too. Chapter 4. The Observer Self Technique. Watching your emotions like weather. What if you could watch your emotions like weather patterns, instead of being swept away by every storm? Inside you is an observer, a part that can watch your emotions without becoming them. You can notice, anger is arising, heart rate increasing. But you don't become the anger, you observe it. This observer self is always calm, always present. It's the part of you that can think, I'm having the thought that this person is an idiot, instead of, this person is an idiot. Your teenager rolls their eyes at you. Instead of immediately getting defensive, activate your observer. I notice irritation rising. Now you're watching the emotion instead of being hijacked by it. From this space, you can choose a response that actually helps. The observer self gives you emotional immunity. You can experience any emotion without being controlled by it. Think about a time you stayed calm in chaos. You were using your observer self. Now you can do it intentionally. Chapter 5. The Reframe Revolution. Difficult people as emotional trainers. What if difficult people aren't obstacles in your path, but personal trainers for your emotional fitness? This perspective shift will change how you see every challenging person. Every difficult person in your life is showing you exactly where you need to grow. That critical boss, they're training your resilience muscle. That passive-aggressive neighbor, they're developing your boundary-setting skills. Just like a physical trainer puts you through uncomfortable exercises to make you stronger, emotional trainers build your emotional strength. Your micromanaging boss sends their 15th email today. Instead of thinking, they don't trust me, try, they're helping me practice staying calm under pressure. Suddenly, this isn't personal persecution, it's emotional strength training. You start responding with curiosity. What do you need to feel confident about this project? When difficult people become trainers, you stop being a victim and become a student. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to level up emotionally. Examine your most challenging relationship. What strength is that person helping you develop? Learn something new? Hit that like button, share it with others, tap subscribe, and stick around for more. Got thoughts? I'd love to hear them in the comments. Chapter 6. The Boundary Blueprint. Protecting your peace without walls. Boundaries aren't walls to keep people out. They're gates with you as the gatekeeper. Here's how to protect your energy without becoming a fortress. Healthy boundaries are like the skin on your body. They let good things in and keep harmful things out. You just need to be clear about what you will and won't accept. I understand you're frustrated, but I don't respond well to yelling. Can we talk when you're calmer? This isn't aggressive. It's assertive. Your friend constantly complains, but never wants solutions. Instead of getting frustrated, set a boundary. I care about you, but I can only listen to this problem for 5 minutes unless you want to brainstorm solutions. You're protecting your emotional energy while still being supportive. Boundaries preserve your capacity to actually help people instead of burning out from their drama. You can't pour from an empty cup. Identify someone who drains your energy. What boundary would protect your peace with them? Chapter 7. The Timeout Protocol. Strategic retreat versus running away. There's a difference between strategic retreat and running away. One makes you stronger, the other makes you weaker. Here's how to know what you're doing. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is temporarily remove yourself from a triggering situation. This isn't weakness, it's wisdom. You're giving your nervous system time to reset and your prefrontal cortex time to come back online. I need to take a break from this conversation. Let's continue when I can respond thoughtfully instead of reactively. You're not abandoning the situation. You're approaching it more skillfully. Your spouse brings up a sensitive topic, right when you're stressed from work. Instead of snapping or shutting down, say, "This conversation is important to me, but I'm not in the right headspace right now. Can we talk about this after dinner?" You're honoring both the topic and your emotional capacity. Timeouts prevent damage that takes weeks to repair. 5 minutes of space can save hours of cleanup conversations. We've all said things in the heat of the moment that we regretted later. Timeouts prevent those moments. Everyone needs breaks sometimes. The mature approach is asking for them instead of just taking them. Recall a conversation that went badly because you were already overwhelmed. A timeout could have changed everything. Chapter 8. The Trigger Map Method. Know your emotional landmines. You wouldn't walk through a minefield blindfolded, so why navigate relationships without knowing your emotional triggers? Here's how to map your landmines. Your triggers aren't random. They follow patterns. People who remind you of your critical parent. Situations that echo past rejections. Words that hit old wounds. When you map these patterns, you stop being surprised by your reactions. This person's tone reminds me of my ex-boss who never trusted my judgment. No wonder I'm feeling defensive. Knowledge is power. When you see the landmine, you can step around it instead of stepping on it. Keep a simple trigger journal for 1 week. When you get triggered, note: who was involved? What specifically did they do or say? What did it remind you of? You'll start seeing patterns. I always get triggered by authority figures who are impatient, or sarcasm always sets me off because my sibling used it to hurt me. When you know your triggers, you can prepare for them. Preparation transforms reaction into response. You become proactive instead of reactive. Everyone has emotional triggers. Most people just don't understand them. Understanding yours is emotional intelligence in action. Notice what consistently triggers you. What pattern do you see? That pattern is your roadmap to freedom. Chapter 9. The compassionate distance. Caring without carrying. You can care about someone without carrying their emotions. You can love someone without living their drama. Here's how to find that balance. Compassionate distance means maintaining emotional boundaries while keeping your heart open. You can witness someone's pain without absorbing it. I see that you're struggling, and I care about you. How can I support you without taking on your stress? It's like being a lifeguard. You throw them a life preserver, but you don't jump in and drown with them. Your friend is going through a bitter divorce and calls you daily to vent. Instead of absorbing their anger and pain, say, "I want to support you through this. Let's set aside time twice a week to really talk, and the other days, let's focus on positive activities together." You're being supportive without being consumed. Compassionate distance preserves your ability to actually be helpful long-term. Burned-out helpers help no one. Everyone knows someone who carries everyone else's problems. That's not sustainable or actually helpful. Consider someone whose drama tends to consume you. How could you care without carrying? Chapter 10. The Story Stopper. Breaking free from mental narratives. You're not experiencing reality, you're experiencing your story about reality. Change the story, change your emotional experience. Here's how to become the editor of your inner narrative. Every time someone triggers you, your mind creates a story. They don't respect me. They're trying to control me. But these are interpretations, not facts. What if their sharp tone means they're stressed, not that they dislike you? The story you tell yourself determines your emotional experience. Your boss gives you feedback in a curt email. Story number 1. They hate my work and want to fire me. Result: anxiety and defensiveness. Story number 2. They're busy and want to help me improve quickly. Result: curiosity and gratitude. Same email, different story. Completely different emotional experience. When you become conscious of your stories, you stop being a victim of your interpretations. You become the conscious creator of your experience. Reflect on a recent upset. What story did you tell yourself? What other story could you have told? Knowledge without practice is just entertainment. Here's how to turn these insights into your new automatic responses. This is where transformation becomes your new normal. Integration happens through consistent practice, not perfection. Start with one technique and use it for a week. When someone triggers you, remember the 90-second rule. When you feel reactive, find your choice point. Each time you choose a new response, you're rewiring your brain. For the next week, pick just one technique, maybe the observer self. Every time you feel triggered, say, "I notice emotion arising." That's it. By week 2, this will start becoming automatic. Small, consistent changes create massive transformations over time. The person who never gets bothered by anyone isn't born different. They've just practiced these skills until they became automatic. You can too. Everyone admires people with emotional mastery. Now you have the roadmap to become one of them. Think about who you'll be when difficult people no longer have power over your peace. That person is waiting for you.